Hey, welcome to another update on Archmage Rises. It's been a while, and I'm sorry about that. I do have a lot of exciting things to share with you because it's been a while. Last update was in 2021. One reason for that is because we got crazy busy, and we continue to be crazy busy. And the best news of all is we are continuing to work on Archmage Rises. Big team, full-time, working on Archmage Rises. Okay, so this update is going to go through what exactly are we doing and how is it that I'm trying to wrangle this project together to get something releasable. We have, I guess, three phases, three milestones that we're trying to reach here. The first is called Alpha. So right now we're in pre-Alpha. Alpha means feature complete. I don't like calling it feature complete. It seems to imply that the game is done and playable and whatever. So we call it internally here feature terrible. Feature terrible means it's in there, but it's probably pretty terrible as far as gameplay, tuning, balance, all those things. So we're trying to get to feature terrible. That is our first step. Then we're going to go from feature terrible to release, and that we would often call like a beta period. We're working on that, but right now we're working on feature terrible. And then you have the actual release date and then the updates and whatever that comes out of that, okay? So last year, let me begin even earlier. I made a lot of promises about what this game is, and you're following this because you somehow heard about the game and it intrigued you, and you said, that's kind of a cool idea. I'm really interested in what that game would play like. I want to play something like that. All right, the very first person I showed Archmage to said, I've always wanted to play a game like that. So we have been working towards fulfilling those promises. I'm coming up to the 8th year, which is absolute insanity. Don't make a game for 8 years. It's stupid. But that's the situation to find myself in. So last year, I sat down and figured out what exactly are the features of Archmage Rises. There's a number of promises. They're high level, but specifically, how does it work? What does it mean to have a wanted system and to have bounties, and NPCs can put bounties on your heads, and like, how do people come after you? What does that look like? Can they attack you in your mage tower? Like, all those things. So we had high level goals about what we wanted in the game, but what are the specifics of it? And so what I did was, while the rest of the team was working on the combat system, I sat down to work on what I called Build 14, the world. And the world means we have all these disparate systems. We work on dungeons, we worked on combat, we worked on a variety of features of Archmage, but what pulls it all together? The simulated world that responds realistically to all of your choices. So what does that look like and mean? So I sat down and wrote from January to June all of the game design, so all the features, and detailed that out. And so what I have up here on my screen is the features. So I have an example here for Build 14 World. I have we're going to have an event system that drives dynamic stories for you, and so I got a couple screenshots from some games that I like. Big shout out to Castles from early 90s. And so I've written out this text. It doesn't matter what it says, but this is an example of the details for the programmer, for the artist that are going to go and work on this thing. So it sounds really stupid, but we never had these details before. So that's one reason why it's like, oh, I think it'll take about another year or something like that. So because I didn't have the details on every, let's call it use case or user story in the game. I didn't have every feature detailed out. So it actually took a really long time in order to detail it out. We did that. The reason I wrapped it up in June, and the reason for that is because we took on a contract with a game studio in the US. And at that time, it was half of the Defiance team working on the contract, and half was continuing to work on Archmage Rises. And that seemed pretty good. The trouble became, after about a month in, they were like, hey, we really like working with you. Can you make a second game for us? There's another team, they're struggling. We'd like to give you their project. And so I looked at it and said, well, okay. And so what ended up happening was they hired the entire Defiance team. And then I grew the team, and they hired all those people too. So we found ourselves making 2 games last year. It was great experience. We grew the team. But what do I really want to do? I want to make Archmage Rises. And so in February, I fired the client, and we finished February 28th. And on March 1st, we began working on Archmage Rises full-time again. The new expanded team, full-time, working on the game. Okay, so now that I have all these features described, how do I manage these tasks? And so I want to show you that I was working in this tool called Codecks, which I actually like a lot for game dev. There's a couple of tools out there that have been designed for game dev, and Codecks is one of them. The other tool is Hack and Plan. I think it's called Hack and Plan. I looked at that one. I didn't find it as nice or as intuitive as Codecks. So we used Codecks, and that we used for building out Build 13, the whole combat system. So the concept is that you make these decks, and decks are just ways of grouping features and functionality. So you see here I have some new races. Yes, we're adding new races to the game. And each one of them has a card associated with it. And you see there's no description on here, but that doesn't really matter. And you can prioritize them. So when I look at the deck, I can see, hey, there's 10 things to do in new races, and here they are prioritized. So it's a quick, easy way to get an overview of your game. So here's spell icons. None of them have priority on them. Here's visual effects. We have some high visual effects thing. This has a different card status on it because somebody's already started working on that particular thing. But what you do is you take these cards and you assign them to people. So I can go in and give this card to somebody. Man, it's been a long time since I've done this. How do I assign this to somebody? Oh, there we go. So here I can choose the people that are on here. There's not very many people on here anymore because I took them off. So I assign it to a person. Hey, that's me. And then I can go to my hand and I can see all of the cards that are in my hand. And then it's like, hey, where's that thing? I don't even know which card I assigned myself. Anyway, this is not a good demo, and they're clearly not paying me for this demo. So there's a spell here, Daggerfall. I assigned it to me, and it should be in my hand. Where's Daggerfall? Yeah, it's clearly assigned to me. I don't know why it's not showing in my hand. Maybe I have to add it to my hand. I don't know. Anyway, this is a terrible demo. I do like this thing, and I used it a year ago, and they've made some changes to it recently, like in the last 2 weeks. And so you assign the cards to people on your team, and that allows you to see like who's doing what, right? They got their little icons on there, and they go around and you can tick off these things, and you can work towards some milestones. This is great, but our team is now 10 people. And with 10 people, first of all, I gotta pay. But secondly, what I really need is some high-level management features that show me burn downs, estimate when we're going to be done certain features, groups of features, which is kind of what their milestone thing is. But there's just, I needed more. This is great for a smaller indie team, which is what we were, but I needed something more. And so when we were working on those client projects, we used Jira and Confluence. And so Jira and Confluence are great programs. They are a little more involved. They're not as pretty as Codecks, for instance. But Jira and Confluence allow me to get the project management type reports that I'm looking for, and has some really great integration, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so I have this Word document, and this is what I wrote all my stuff in. Why? Because I like Word, I know how to use it, so I wrote up all my stuff in Word. Great, so I have all these details in Word. How do I get this into something that somebody can use, right? So a developer can read a task and get all this information, because the last thing they want to do is link back to some Word document they have to open in Microsoft Office. You'll see this document is fairly large, 254 pages, 62,000 words for our GDD, and it covers the majority of the game. So how do I get from Word to this tool called Confluence? So Confluence is where if I go here under combat, you can see all this text and stuff here. If I go into What's something somebody's working on? The map. Here, I can go into seasons. And so we have seasons on the map, and what's great about Confluence is its documentation in a wiki style, which is better, it's superior to Word or Google Doc. And it allows me to just go and select something and make a task based on it. I'm not going to actually do it right here because I don't need to, but it allows you to tie documentation and tasks together, and you need to be able to see that to manage your team. So here is the weather system that we're implementing, storms, and we see, hey, here's the task. So I click on it and I see that Zach was working on it. I see how much time he logged against it: 1 week, 2 days, 4 hours. The original estimate was 3 days. Our estimates are pretty terrible. When he looks at this task, he's like, oh, I got to work on this weather thing. And it's mentioned on this Confluence page, weather. So this tight integration between feature and task is fantastic. And it's what is enabling us to work very productively, very effectively on the project. Okay, so that's great. How do I get this information into Confluence? It seems really simple, but it is not. So I got this stuff in Microsoft Word and this story thing, and I want to get it into Confluence. So great, I'll just go to the top under game design, create a new page here. I do care about these images. I'm not going to care for this little demonstration purposes here. What I really care about is this write-up, and you see that it's indented, and sometimes the subsections have even more subsections. That's all really important for clarity of writing it. I've been writing use cases for decades, and I'm very familiar with doing that. So here I have my page title. I'll call it the event system, and now I'm going to paste it in. And it's a big fat mess. Yes, it detected that it is a numbered list, but the things aren't tied. This A, B, and C aren't tied to anything. So what I had to do was go in and hit enter and indent. And look at the tedium of this. I mean, you don't even want to watch me do it. I don't want to do it. But this is what I was going and doing because I needed to get it out of Word and into this. So first lesson is don't write your stuff in Word. Write it directly into Confluence. Okay, well, that wasn't a choice because I didn't have Confluence at the time I was writing it. So I have all this data stuck in Word that I need to get out. And I was going through... I got allergies right now. Sorry about that. So I was going through and putting all this information in here and just, I don't know, spending hours and hours just rejigging the same content. We were in stand-up and somebody said, did you try Google Docs? In here, there's a feature to import. I'm just going to close this because I don't need it. There is a feature to import a Word document. And I was like, well, that sounds pretty useful. Let's do that. Is that under create? Let's export. Oh, wait, there. Import Word document. So that sounds pretty great. Okay, I did the import Word document. It doesn't work. It doesn't track all of your indents and the numbers and stuff, which is the way that you would write a user story or a use case. So that wasn't going anywhere. Somebody's like, hey, why don't you try Google Docs? And I'm like, what exactly is Google Docs going to do for me? I don't know, I guess, but anything beats doing all that tedium. So what I did was I opened my Word document in Google Docs. So here I am, I'm in the same section. You can see the formatting is a little off or whatever. Anyways, but here is my text. And look at the magic of this. So I'm in Google Docs. I select all this. I go back to my Confluence. And it's perfect. This saved me days and days of time. The indentation is perfect. It works exactly as I would expect it would. So, unfortunately, Google Docs couldn't handle 250 pages of stuff with all the images and tables and all those charts, which is one of the reasons why I used Word. But I managed to section it up into separate files and get those files piece by piece into Google Docs. I ended up with like 10 pieces, about 20 pages a piece. And I would get it in Google Docs and I could cut and paste and instantly have it into Confluence. And that was great. There was much rejoicing. Yay. Okay. So now I have this document, all these documented features, right? So if I get out of this and go back to the wiki. So I have my game design, and we have all these things, right? So under NPCs, we got traits, conversation, we got nobles. This is all great, but how do we actually get anything done? It's great for reference, but like, how long is that going to take, and who's going to work on it? Whatever. That's where Jira comes in. So Jira is a way of managing your sprints and your tasks. And so here we can see the current build that we're working on, build 14, and we're in sprint number 4, which is the 2nd May sprint. And you can see the tasks in here. And so we have people that are being assigned to these tasks, and you can see which things are in progress. Okay, Josh is working on the new save system. Sean is working on the ability to make camp. What's done? We can have animated icons on the map. Why? Because I want the game to be like Ultima 4, because I love Ultima 4. So we need animated icons on the map. So you have your Kanban swim lanes to be able to show like where things are. And when you have 10 people on the team and a lot of them are remote, it's super handy to be able to just scroll down this in progress and see, oh, that's what Jesse's doing. That's what Zach is doing. That's what Tyler's doing. So this is really valuable. But how do you get it from an interesting chart thing here about traits or a conversation system? Like, how do you get that to those tasks? And that's what I was showing, where you can select certain things, you can create Jira tasks for them. But what I did was I went to my Word document, and I went through my table of contents and came up with a list of all the features in the game. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with that anymore. And I put that into Excel. So I have all the features in the game, and then I went and estimated how long is it going to take to make each one of these features. So these are somewhat now prioritized. And so the values that matter here is, what is my estimated effort? So I don't have any way of estimating effort other than how long would it take me, I think, to do it. I come up with those estimates by looking at time logs. It's impossible to do estimation without having time logs. So I look at the time logs on Archmage Rises for other features, and I go, wow, that feature took 17 days. Wow, that feature took 3 days. No feature takes less than 1 day. So that gives me some numbers to work with. This is kind of like a story point system, if you're familiar with story points, where you're just like, small, medium, large, extra large, right? Just t-shirt sizes, trying to come up with basically what it is. Is it 1 day? Is it 3 days? Is it 5 days? Is it 7 days? Is it 17 days? That's basically our scale. Except you see a 16 down here. Anyway, so I did that for each one of the features, coming up with an estimated effort for it. And then for the categories, so the town category, I have a total of 6. For the buildings, I have a bunch of features here for buildings, and it comes out to a total of 11. So I could take those ideas here in the spreadsheet, and I could start to figure out, okay, how long is it actually going to take? So here in the game systems, it's going to be 68 days. And then I'm like, oh man, this whole thing, if I go down here, it's 709 days, 710 feature development days. If I have a team of 5 working on that and I divide it out, it comes out to 7 months of work. Now, these estimates are wrong, and don't get all excited. The game's going to be done in 7 months. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's like a ton of work. There's no way I'm going to be able to get all that work done, because people go slower than the actual estimated effort. So what I did was I started cutting, cut is the wrong word. I started delaying features. And so that's where you have these columns here. So this idea of factions, politics, the conclave, free mages, I just had to move all that stuff into what I call delay 1. So there's going to be feature terrible, and then we're going to be working towards all the features I delayed in delay 1. Then we're going to be working on the features for delay 2, and then that's how we get a full release to the game. So when I broke that out, I got from 709 days down to 378 days. And 378 days with a team of 5 programmers, not including me. So 5 programmers, that gets us down to 3.8 months. 3.8 months, if you've done any project management, the rule of thumb is you kind of double it. So 3.8 months gives it probably about 8 months. And so that seemed realistic. So this 7 months would become 14 months or 20 months or something. Like, it was just way too much work. So I got it down to that. And so I just delayed certain features. So that's the 150 is the next delay, and the 192 is the delay after that. So we are talking about feature terrible, 378 effort days to go. Okay, Thomas, that's interesting and all, but now what? Like, when are we going to do these things? What features by when? So I have all these feature dates and stuff, but what does it actually work out to an actual date that you can look at? And this video is not about promising you an actual date, and you'll see why in a few moments. But I need to know, are we going to run out of money before we finish this game? That's super important. You want to know that. I want to know that. So that's when I have to take this to the next step. Now, why did I switch over to Jira? It was for the ability to do this. And I want to introduce you to the team. We have a somewhat part-time, we have a 3-day-a-week senior artist working on the team. So that's why I say there's 10 people working full-time on this thing. And so here is everybody on the team all saying hello. Hello. Okay. So when you have that many people and every day they need tasks and we need to manage the tasks and which tasks are going on, you need something to organize all that work. And the answer is sprints, coming from the Agile Scrum process stuff that I used at my previous software company. I sold my software company, by the way, for those that may be interested. I sold it last September. I'm supposed to get the final payment this month, actually. So they got 9 days to pay me. And that's one of the things I'm using in order to finance finishing this game. Okay, so how we manage this is I take all those features and I stuck them in the backlog. And so we have all these features that have been whacked out. I started using the roadmap feature to try to figure things out, but honestly, the free version of the roadmap feature on Jira is pretty terrible and useless. It did allow me to get all the features. So from that Excel spreadsheet, if I went to the Mage Tower, right? So here's Mage Tower. There's also some Mage Tower up here, which is the one that's actually there. Where is it? Yeah, Mage Tower. So we need to rewrite the system of the Mage Tower. Frame rate's too low. There's a bunch of other things. And then we have a couple of rooms. So if I go over here and look at this, here's Mage Tower. Here's the stuff within it. And this tool allows you to decide where and when you're going to be working on these things. But what it doesn't do, at least at the free level, is automatically calculate how long this Gantt chart should be. It's so stupidly annoying. So you just like set it to whatever it is that you think it should be. But each one of these tasks has an estimated time on it. So the 1 week and 2 days, so that's 7 days, 3 days and such. I don't know why they can't just tell me here at the top level what the total estimate is. Like, they're giving me 2 weeks and 3 days here. But that's something I had to type in. Again, I don't know if it's just because I'm on the free edition, they don't bubble up the values. But anyway, I found this whole roadmap thing. I was really excited about it. I'm like, this is a good way to organize all the stuff. And then I found out it was terrible. It's not a good way. So that brings me to the backlog. So what is a backlog? In the Scrum Agile process, you use the backlog in order to track all of your product features. So here we have a whole bunch of product features. And they start here. Whenever I create a new feature, right, I go up here and I hit create, and I create a task. Where does it go? It goes to the bottom of the backlog. So the backlog is your holding area. And then what you do is you take your individual items and you chuck them into sprints. And so right now, this sprint that we're currently working on, it has 10 weeks and 4 days of work in the to-do, and 9 weeks and 3 days in the in progress, and 1 week and 3 days in the done. That's what these colored things are. So now I can see at the macro level how many things are assigned to this particular sprint. This is a ridiculous amount of work assigned to this sprint. I'm not concerned about that, neither should you be. It doesn't matter. Those things are assigned there. What matters is not all the artwork and the audio work, because what's driving the schedule here is the programmers or the engineers working on the features. So the whole project is driven by when can the features be done, and the artists and the audio can come in and support those things. So the critical path is the features, the programming of the features. So what I figured out is I looked at our previous sprints and how much effort we were getting done. Now, there's a whole ramp up to working on the game. Josh worked on the game last year. He started in March. He worked on the game for about 4 months. Michael and I have worked on the game for several years. Everybody else is brand new to the game. This game is really hard to make. If you have a code base that's 8 years old with multiple people who have worked on it, that's already a difficulty and complex. Then the fact that the game does things that no other game does before, like we're in Dwarf Fortress kind of territory. Well, I guess a lot of things are very similar to Dwarf Fortress. So high simulation, a lot of details to the world. And then when you add the passage of time to things, it's really complicated. So it's difficult because of the code base. It's difficult because of what we're trying to achieve. So ramping up people on the project has taken a long time. We've now been working on this thing full time for 2.5 months, and people are just about at the level where they can start working on things and go, oh, I kind of know how to approach that by working on it in the game. I have had very nice fans that have reached out to me and said, hey, I'm willing to throw my hat in and help you out with the programming on this thing. And that's much appreciated. But there is this ramp up period that is very difficult. And then all the task management that goes along with dividing things out with people it's very hard to accept volunteers coming on to the project. So it doesn't mean I don't appreciate it. Doesn't mean I won't necessarily do it, but it's difficult. Okay, so we've been ramping up people on this project, and what I have figured out is if we can get to doing 40 feature days, you can call them 40 story points. If we can do 40 story points across a 2-week sprint, across the 5 programmers, so what that effectively means is if a programmer can do 4 days of work per week, that is a good cadence that we can then use in order to get this game done. And so when I planned out these sprints, I would go into each one of the features and I would prioritize the features, right? I would look at them and go, what's the most important thing that we need to get done? Proper project management is your hardest, most complex tasks you put at the beginning. Why? That's when you have the most time and the most energy. You will never have that much time and that much energy again. So get the hardest things done first. Then save all the little things to the end, the easy things, the things with no dependencies on them, of course. Save those things to the end. So that way, when you're in the 11th hour and everybody's tired and exhausted from working on this thing, you don't have these super hard systems that you have to get done. So what is most important to the game? What has dependencies that later features rely on? And what is complex and difficult that we need to do. So map generation and history generation, those are 2 different things. Map generation and history generation, those are hard, complex things that we need to get done now because the rest of the game is relying on those things. So estimate those things out. So again, this whole weeks and days thing, it doesn't show you just in days, it divides it into weeks. So obviously 5 working days to a week. So 3 weeks is 15 days, and then 1 extra day makes it 16. So I have estimates to all those things. I chuck them on here and I do it. What is 40 days? That's 8 weeks. And so I just started sectioning it up. So knowing I have a budget of 40 working days, 40 feature days per sprint, I just started throwing things into sprints. And you can see none of them actually, well, this one goes to 8, but a lot of them are under 8. That's because I already know things are going to go long. Yeah, that's how I started breaking up the features. So these are the sprints that we're working towards and trying to get all the features done. So doing that, taking all those effort days and getting it down to here, when are we going to be done? And the answer right now with false estimates is that this second sprint of September, so the last part of September, early part of October is when we should be approaching feature terrible, hitting alpha, feature complete. I just said that like a promise. It is not. That is what we think right now. So when we're talking internally, that's what we're trying to achieve. Why in May do I want to hit 40 working days, 40 effort days in a sprint so that we can hit an early part of October? Now, if you're looking really closely, you'll see that here in August, we only have 1 week and 2 days assigned. And then here in September, 1 week of assigned work. What happened to the 40 days? The answer is because I already know that some of these things are going to go long and we're going to have to bump things and take things out, put them in the backlog and such. I purposely left these 2 sprints as light, extremely light, obviously, right? 1/7 of it. or 1/8, to handle that overflow. The things that go long and require things to be bumped, there's a sprint sitting there waiting to receive them, rather than just pushing the whole thing out. So that's how I figured it out. There's a couple of things that we need to do in order to launch the game. We need to have a game menu, main menu. We need a simplified version of character creation. I saved all those to the very, very end. Those are things we need to do right before we're about to finish for the alpha. So, last thing is, so I have all these sprints figured out. So then we go into the actual sprint, which would be the board. This is the currently active sprint. And I figured out something. If I was to take, let's say I have 5 programmers, so I was to take 5 one-week tasks and give each one of the programmers one of those tasks, then, you know, after a week I should have 5 tasks done. And then the second week do the same thing, and then I have 10 tasks done. The trouble is, doesn't really work that way. And what I found is, because the game is so big, the code base is so big and complex, it's very difficult for people working on it, especially when they're remote and they're in their, you know, working by themselves in their home, in their bedroom, whatever. People get kind of demoralized. And so what I found is, it's better to put 2 people on one thing. So 2 people on a 2-week project, a task, and now they have a week for 2 people, and they divide up the work amongst themselves. Now they have somebody to talk to. Now they have somebody to ask questions. Now they can rubber duck and say, hey, I was thinking of doing this, but I'm having a problem. And, oh, wait, just telling you about it. I think I know what the answer is. That really helped a lot so far. So there's another tip for you. Get 2 people working on tasks, the same task, rather than dividing it up separately. Now, when you break it down, like something like, it's not pair programming. That's not what I'm talking about, where literally 2 people are working on one task. What I'm saying is, hey, we need somebody to rewrite the Mage Tower system. It's a 7-day task. It's not one person for 7 days, it's 2 people for 3.5 days. So they can figure out amongst themselves, like, oh, I'm going to do this part, and you do that part, and whatever. And it gives somebody to talk to in dialogue. And because you have what I would call clients and producers, so somebody's creating some feature, and there's a client, there's another person that needs to use that feature, they can talk better, and they have a more clear, concrete description of what it is done looks like. When you have that second person, it's going to be utilizing your code. So if you're just by yourself working on it, it's very hard to know, did I do that right? Is it going to be useful to somebody else on the team? I don't know. When you have 2 people on it. Okay, I'll stop talking to that. So that is the current state of Archmage Rises. I am going to give you a state of the union, what's going on with the studio and money and financial update. I will do that, but I wanted to cover off, this is how to do indie game dev project management. It's not the only way to do it. I'm just sharing with you how we're going about it, and it's working. Oh, one last thing. So something that is really important for morale and for everybody is the burn down chart. So the reason we're using Jira is it's able to tell us, like, how many days of work you got done. If I go back to the backlog thing here, it can tell you, hey, you did 1 week and 3 days so far in that sprint, right? So getting these totals is really helpful. And so once a week, we go and we look at what people have contributed to finishing the game, right? So you finish a feature. Do they have the done ones? Yeah, so here's a done one. That's not a good example. Here's a done one. So the Fax 2.0 system assigned to Michael, it's 1 week, 5 days. So when I go to Archmage Rises, let's go here. Okay, we have currently 337 task days to alpha, to feature terrible. And here I'm tracking our momentum. This is not very advanced, obviously, it's just a table. And so in our second week, our second sprint there in March, we managed to finish 4 days of work, 16, and then a whole lot of zeros. That's not very encouraging, obviously. That's because people are ramping up, and there's certain systems that needed to be rewritten. We had one task. This is a funny story. We had one task that we gave to Tyler, and it was assigned for 1 day. putting temperature and moisture into a hex, so that we temperature, if the temperature goes low, then it gets icy, it affects combat. It might even affect your stamina and your health, your ability to walk through the tile. If the moisture is very high, that's what makes it an ocean tile or lake tiles, because the moisture is at 100%. So we gave this task like, hey, put these 2 float values into a hex and such, and then it'll allow us to change the kind of hex that it is, from a desert to an ocean back to a desert, using spells and such. So Tyler starts working on that 1-day task to add these 2 floats. And it took him 78 days in order to do it, because he had to rewrite how the map was done and drawn and whatever. But anyways, now it works. So that's why you end up with a lot of zeros in here, because he's busy working on something and rewriting some underpinning tech of the game. And that's how you end up with a whole bunch of zeros. So anyway, last week we managed to do 18 days. Complete 18 days of work in a week. This week we managed to finish 8. So what we do is we gather as a team, because we have a lot of remote people, and we gather together, and when we change these numbers, we put in, hey, this is how fast we went, and then here is this. So currently our best speed for a sprint is 26 days in a sprint, and I just told you that we were planning things out at 40 effort days in a sprint. And so we're not yet going at the speed that we need to go to, and I have to figure out how to increase that speed, but it's going in the right direction. Previously, our best across 2 weeks was 20, and now we're at 26. Obviously, the zeros are in there, but anyway, we're going in the right direction. Then we have this other issue, which is like, so I've estimated the features for all, the effort for all these features, but what about art and animation and the audio experience, music, sound effects? Like, what about all that stuff? We aren't driving the schedule by those things. Like I said earlier, those are support tasks that make the features good and professional and polished and such. So the fact that somebody worked on audio for 7 days, that doesn't reduce this 337. Because those are programming effort days. This is what's keeping us from giving you the game feature terrible alpha. So, but it's not very rewarding to like work all week and make no impact on the big number, the number that's driving the project and the company. So we came up with the idea of Artio, which is a combination of art and audio. So this is a number that counts up. How much did I contribute to the polish of the game? And so last week, 14 days of effort were contributed to the game. We haven't done a good job on tracking the effort on a lot of the art tasks. But so this number should be going up. The higher this number goes, the higher the quality of the game. The lower this number goes, the closer we are to actually being able to release an alpha to you. And then task days from the alpha, all the stuff that we have to still do and tune and such, there's 179 days to go. So that one's not a number we're looking at right now. It's a fixed amount of work that we'll get to later. So this is where we are at, and I want to thank you for your time and your attention to this. I hope this is helpful for those who are game developers or want to be game developers. I hope you learned something. My goal is to bring you up to date on what's going on with Archmage, but also to show you the challenges we're having behind the scenes and how we're overcoming some of those challenges. Hopefully that inspires people or gives you an aha moment like we had in stand-up, where he's like, hey, did you try importing the thing into into Google Docs? And that ended up saving me days and days of work. So maybe there's something for the rest of you. With that, I gotta go, and we will see you all next time. Bye!